Put briefly, Potionomics is a game about potions, friends, and debt, though not necessarily in that order. The player takes control of Sylvia, a young witch fresh out of college who has recently heard about her uncle Oswald's demise and has been informed that she is to inherit her uncle's lifelong dream, his potion shop on the remote island of Rafta. Unfortunately, in the process of inheriting the premises, Sylvia also inherits her uncle's rather large debt, which needs to be paid back within a rather short time span. Given the rundown state of the shop and so little starting capital, Sylvia finds herself in a bind. But, in a stroke of good luck, a competition is being held on Rafta with a substantial cash prize, capable of saving her from this fate. Every 10 days for the next 50 days, Sylvia needs to beat an opponent in a potion-making contest to make enough money to pay off her debtors. Failing to do so will result in Sylvia becoming a corporate slave trapped in a cubicle. Along the way, Sylvia will meet new friends, expand the shop, make new potions, and aggressively haggle with every customer in an attempt to convince them to buy a random potion she made out of Yeti dung, or something like that. To put it briefly, Potionomics is wearing its heart on its sleeve, and I love it. So let's talk about being a potion witch. It is hard to talk about Potionomics without talking about one of its more controversial points, the time mechanic. Potionomics takes place over 50 days as the shop goes from run-down and unknown to barely meeting basic building codes and the talk of the town. Each of these days is divided into 6 time segments. Opening the shop to haggle over the price of the potions costs 2 time segments. Leaving the shop to acquire new ingredients, sending heroes out to find more, or acquiring new tools to further Sylvia's trade costs 1 time segment. Increasing a relationship level with one of the characters costs another segment, etc. The game is centered around this fine balance of time, gold, stress, ingredients, and upgrades. The player has time, and it needs to be spent to manage the other aspects of the game. Managing all of these aspects can be a lot at times, as I ended up having to pull out a notepad and plan out my last 10 days in full just to make sure everything went according to plan. Most players will hang on until the end, just barely scraping by, excited to spend some time upgrading their shop once all over the finish line. But Potionomics does not have a post-game, or New Game Plus, and does little to warn you of this. Once those 50 days are up, the game is over, and 5 of those days are competitions, and another is a forced tutorial. So, the player really only gets 44 days to play Potionomics. If, say, a player has something they want to get done, but runs out of time, they either must load a previous save, which they may or may not have, wasting possibly hours of time, or start a completely new playthrough. This abrupt ending has led to some pushback, and while I do hold my own reservations against the ticking clock, I would like to defend it, as I think the time limit actively improved my experience. The time limit kept the mechanics from getting stale. I was getting close to being bored of potion mixing by the end, with the need to constantly reselect ingredients one by one and the sheer number of ingredients needed becoming a drag in the later stages. Just as my patience for the potion mixing was wearing thin, before I could come to dislike it, the game was over. I was left with nothing but good memories of the game at that point, with no time for it to feel bloated or drawn out. The game was done. A short but fun and heartwarming experience that I reflect on fondly. If I was allowed to run into the ground, which I no doubt would have done in a New Game Plus, I do not think I would reflect on the game as positively. This mechanic, whether intentional or not, made the game a better experience for me. Others may differ, being desperate for more or not being able to max things out in time, but I thought it just left enough room for me to stretch a little and get a nice, short, and fun experience. I have another reason for liking the time mechanic, but I will get into that later in another section. In the meantime, let's talk about those potions. Brewing potions is rather simple. Put ingredients in the cauldron, and potions come out. To be a bit more detailed, ingredients have properties referred to as magimen. There are 5 colors of magimen referred to by the letters A through E: red, green, yellow, blue, and purple respectively. A potion requires a certain balance of these magimen when being created, with a better ratio making a better potion. Better ingredients have a higher total magimen count, and more ingredients means more magimen in total. Both the number of ingredients and the amount of magimen are limited by your cauldron. That is potion making at its core. Combine ingredients, put them in a cauldron. Wait, sell. Buy better ingredients, buy better cauldrons, wait, sell, repeat. There are plenty of other things added to this brew to spice it up, like the trade system. Ingredients can come with positive or negative traits that impact the value of a potion by a substantial amount. Sometimes customers will put in custom orders that require a certain tier of potion with certain traits, which can be rather difficult. Another ingredient used to spice things up is fuel. Fuel allows the player to decrease the amount of time needed for a potion to finish. In the late game, where potions can take upwards of 15 time slots to finish, it becomes essential to plan ahead as to where the fuel will be sourced and how powerful it should be. On top of that, the player also has the aging mechanic, which increases a potion's value by a fixed amount, given the player is willing to wait. Potion making starts simple and remains so, but is built upon in small steps over the 50 days to scale things up and keep the player engaged. It does risk becoming overwhelming, but the rate of introduction keeps it from being too much to handle. The time limit, as well as the new mechanics introduced throughout the 50 days on Rafta, help to keep brewing potions from becoming too tedious. Sylvia wouldn't be able to make these potions without the right tools or the materials in the first place, so now let's talk about how Sylvia will get to the finish line with the help of her friends. I mentioned earlier that Potionomics has a sense of pacing to it, and the time mechanic is responsible for tying the whole game in a nice bow, but it alone is not responsible for the sense of pace I felt. As I mentioned earlier, the player is limited by time, cash, stress, ingredients, and upgrades. Initially, Sylvia has only one way to acquire new ingredients, the Heroes Guild. By outfitting an adventurer, like the lovable Little Mint, with potions and paying a fee, Sylvia can send a hero into an area to slay monsters and bring back loot. The guild has a handy testing feature, which allows you to know just how much bang you're getting for your buck, as it isn't always worth sending a hero to get ingredients. The guild also offers another service through its local aristocratic guildmaster, Baptiste. By paying a fee, Sylvia can fund a larger expedition of heroes that will bring back loot from their next raid, which is displayed beforehand. The loot is often a new set of ingredients, some of which could be the next big thing needed to get a potion to the next level. The raid also has the possibility to bring back even rarer ingredients from time to time on top of what was selected, but the raids come with risks. The more money spent, the more ingredients are retrieved, but it also raises the chances that the raid will disrupt the ecosystem. If an ecosystem is disrupted, the guild has to suspend operations in the area, which means a couple of things. The first effect is decreased drops on monsters in the area, making it a bad investment to send your heroes in after a disruptive raid. The second effect is price fluctuation. As the Heroes Guild happens to supply the island of Rafta with some materials, prices increase when less can be acquired. This can be bad for business when you needed some ingredients for a potion in a few days for a competition. Later, as the game opens up, Sylvia gains access to cat-powered loot boxes, brought to you by the adorable feline pirate duo Salt and Pepper. The loot boxes come in 3 rarities, offering different possibilities for rare ingredients. I didn't use the duo too much, but at least they didn't let you gamble your life savings away with that daily limit, right? This is all well and good, but these methods are randomized, making it hard to get a steady supply of the staple ingredients needed to fund your way to victory. This is where Quinn comes in. Quinn happens to like you enough that she will sell you her goods, keeping a healthy supply of everything in her pet mimic named Boxer, which she restocks daily. Prices will fluctuate due to external factors, as I mentioned previously, so timing adventures with buying sprees is recommended. She is also where you return to get some more of a newfound ingredient. In exchange for a taste of, well, anything, Quinn uses her clairvoyance to find more of it, adding it to her stock the next day. Being the go-to witch for ingredients, Quinn is a face Sylvia will see a lot during her 50 days. The ingredients Sylvia gets have to be used somewhere, and the shoddy starting cauldron with only 6 ingredient slots will only get Sylvia so far. In comes Muktuk, the overwhelmingly enthusiastic walrus, who gives you a cauldron for free, and says you can get more from him later if you like. Considering how expensive those things are in the early game, it's a huge boost to morale if you don't know it's coming. Anyways, Muktuk is your vendor for equipment and equipment upgrades, getting you better cauldrons to make better potions, better shelves to increase the price of your bartered potions, and barrels to age your potions and further increase their price. The new cauldron Muktuk gave you is nice and all, but it is useless without a place to put it. This is where Saffron, the other upgrade vendor, comes in, with a little extra on the side. Saffron will turn this run-down derelict potion shop your uncle left you into a thriving store once more, giving Sylvia more space for cauldrons, shelves, and barrels. She also happens to be a reliable source of fuel, which can also help immensely in a pinch, if you have the money for it. Now there is only one thing left to cover: stress. For most of the game, Sylvia will be selling her potions by haggling. The customer only has so much patience for your shenanigans before they walk out, so you have to play your cards right, literally. Haggling is a card game in Potionomics, with each card costing a certain amount of patience to play. If the customer's patience hits 0, they lose interest and leave, so Sylvia has to play her cards right to ensure she sells at the best price. Haggling, however, is a two-way street. The customer also has some moves up their sleeve as well, as each turn the customer will deploy a tactic against Sylvia to either lower the price, make her tactics less effective, decrease their own patience, or increase Sylvia's stress. Stress may seem like a small problem at first, only taking 1 or 2 stress damage, but it is death by 1,000 cuts, and it almost always forces you to cut your losses. Stress is measured as a percentage, and that percentage determines the chance of drawing an unplayable stress card with a myriad of terrible effects that take place once Sylvia's turn ends. The turn could always be cut short by either winning the deal or by closing it out, but that isn't always guaranteed. Sometimes the deal falls through or has to be closed unfavorably. If stress hits 100%, Sylvia has to take a break for the rest of the day, wasting valuable time, but setting stress back to 0. Losing an entire day can be damaging, so Sylvia has to manage stress in between haggling sessions. Sleeping lowers stress by 10%, but Sylvia can only sleep once a day. Sylvia can block stress while haggling, protecting her from some of it, but inevitably, some will get through, and Sylvia can't manage all that stress on her own. One method Sylvia has at her disposal is hanging with the many colorful characters present in Rafta, growing closer to them and lowering stress by proportional amount, but consuming some of that temporal gold known as time in the process. The other is by getting better cards and playing them right. By gifting the many characters found on Rafta with a thing or two every now and again, Sylvia can spend some time with them to talk with them in a visual novel style cutscene. This furthers Sylvia's relationship with the character in question, and might unlock a new bartering card or coupon. The coupon will provide a discount at the offered service, and the card will provide Sylvia with a new style of haggling to play with, usually themed to the character it was taught by. To properly survive, make money, and manage stress, the player actually needs to make friends, as it would be hard to get anywhere without all the stuff Sylvia learned from everyone during her time on Rafta. I do have a complaint about decks in general, as I stopped experimenting and just stuck with something that worked until it stopped working. This was because it was too difficult to swap up decks, as there was no way to save a deck or swap it out quickly with another. Having multiple deck slots would be helpful, but I got through fine without it, making this only a minor inconvenience, but one that kept me from experimenting as often. The economy of time, cash, stress, ingredients, and upgrades all serve to keep the player from scaling out of control too fast. This prevents the player from getting bored of what there is too quickly. Each upgrade made a drastic change in how I approached the game, even if I did not notice it at first. This was not only a memorable experience, but one that tested my management skills as I strained to balance the multitude of factors at play. Potionomics, however, is not just some management simulator, as Rafta has plenty more to offer. Beyond mechanics and gameplay, Potionomics is one of the most charming games I have ever had the pleasure of playing. The characters seem to come to life with each animation, bringing an energy to each conversation. The design of the characters and the color palette of both the characters and the environment serve to further enhance this pleasant atmosphere. I couldn't help but get involved with each character's plight. The personalities of each character are dialed up to 11 here, as each lean into their archetype, but, despite this, each of the characters has a surprising amount of depth. Every character, even the villains, is wonderfully charismatic, always bringing a levity to the whole game even when the writing seems to indicate a rather dire situation. Seeing the characters in action, even when they repeat old animations on loop that I had seen a dozen times before, was always endearing. This is all further enhanced by the music. The soundtrack is, in equal measure, comforting, energetic, and calm, supporting whatever the game needs of it. I remember this test I heard about a few times, the silhouette test. I can't remember if I'm getting this right or not, but a good character design should be recognizable by their silhouette. Not only do each of the cast pass this test visually, but you can also tell exactly who a character is based on their theme. The themes also serve to convey information about each character. Marek's theme mirrors his enthusiasm and gusto. Zid's theme sounds just like she looks. And Salt and Pepper's theme is literally cats singing a sea shanty. It really doesn't get better than that. There was a lot of care put into each character as their looks, animations, and theme all tell the player just who they are upon a glance and serve to bring them to life throughout the game. A good example of how much the visual and audio design impacted my experience can be shown in the more difficult topics present in Potionomics. These topics can be quite depressing at times, but between the music and the art design, the gravity of each situation rarely threatened to overwhelm the experience. This allowed me to consider the implications of what was just discussed without being brought down. It never felt jarring either, more like a natural part of the world that everyone has already come to terms with. It never leaves the problems unsolved either, managing to address each in due time, and the music simply keeps you from dwelling on the past. The animations and the music were two of the biggest highlights in the game for me, making my experience just that much better. In the end, this was an experience that only started feeling tedious because I went back and kept replaying sections of the game using save scumming to capture footage. And, despite nearing tedium, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. This isn't a groundbreaking game mechanically. It hasn't jumped through hoops to make something new and revolutionary. Potionomics simply picked a few things and made them work as well as they could. And considering the fact that it was just 5 people, later expanded to 8, behind this, I am thoroughly impressed. I cannot imagine getting even seemingly simple things like these systems to interlock properly to create this sense of tension and urgency, while giving the player enough time to explore the characters and the stories around them. Sure, Potionomics has some problems. There is an infinite deck that just wins you pretty much every haggling session, absurdly high-priced potions, and a few exploits here and there. But, if you are willing to stumble your way through making potions in an unfamiliar place, I would recommend giving it a go. Now let's talk about why I stuck around for so long. Just so we are clear, spoilers from here on out. I plan to spoil most of the character arcs in Potionomics, which is one of the big reasons to play it in the first place. If I have not already made my opinion on the game clear enough, Potionomics is well worth your time and the asking price, even if it is just to see the labor of love in action. So, with that out of the way, let's continue. Bear with me here, as I want to talk about the characters that Sylvia interacts with throughout the game and my thoughts on them. As I mentioned earlier, spending time with a character requires time slots, and the player has a limited number of those per playthrough. I went through the trouble of optimizing my last week to ensure I got all the characters to their maximum relationship level so I could properly reflect on the game, as I was already aware of the time limit. My time on Rafta reminded me what it means, at least for me, to have a successful life. One of the very first people that Sylvia meets is Quinn, the clairvoyant ingredient supplier. Quinn is in it for herself, or at least she wants others to think so. Boxer, her rescued pet mimic who acts as her constant companion, is more than enough proof to the contrary. To those that Quinn feels like she can trust, she certainly seems to act the same way as when they first met, prickly and abrasive. But her interactions, despite seeming rough, are kinder than before, though in a sharp way. Quinn may not seem it at first, but she's probably one of the best friends a denizen of Rafta could ask for. Quinn isn't without her ghosts, with the said ghosts being parental in nature. Being the first witch in her family to have mental magic, her parents saw an opportunity for profit and decided to capitalize on it. Since Quinn could use her magic to learn things that no one else could, her parents sought to use it for everything from blackmail to industrial espionage. All they had to do was get Quinn to master her powers enough to intentionally focus on something. So began Quinn's days locked up in a tower running experiment after experiment, all in an attempt by her parents to turn their only child into a profit margin. One day, Quinn escaped and fled to the island of Rafta, where she now resides and offers her services, though not before setting her parents' vineyard on fire. Though Quinn has escaped her parents, she hasn't escaped the abuse they put her through, having days where she forgets that her parents are the ones that need to change, and she gets caught up in wishful thinking. Having been betrayed by the two people she should have been able to trust, Quinn has a rather hard time trusting others, as she doesn't want anyone else to take advantage of her. Quinn doesn't want to remain alone, however, so she expands her circles again, starting with Boxer. She found Boxer alone and abandoned, and decided to take him in. Quinn decided to care for another beyond herself, and it enabled her to trust again, even if it was an ingredient-hungry mimic. Sylvia serves to assist in helping the process along, if even only a bit more. With the reasoning of a rather lucrative business proposition, Quinn establishes her relationship with Sylvia. From there, Sylvia keeps spending time with Quinn, supporting her, trusting her, and tricking her into talking about her feelings over ice cream. With another person in her life, Quinn is able to share the details of her past, and a desire for closure. Quinn wants to know how her parents are doing without her, but since she has yet to learn how to control her powers, she has all but given up on that closure. Sylvia, wanting to help, encourages Quinn, with a few kind words and a few very expensive potions, not to give up. Now, with a better understanding of both herself and her powers, Quinn is able to scry her parents living their lives as if their only daughter hadn't left them, without a care in the world. Business as usual. Though her parents may not be suffering a fate that would bring Quinn any enjoyment, it does bring her some closure. With the help of Sylvia, she has come to deal with her ghosts bit by bit, as the bad days just aren't as bad anymore with Sylvia around. Though she has to live with her ghost for the rest of her life, Quinn has someone in her life that can help her grow and pull her out of her comfort zone, making her stronger than any ghost she has haunting her. This sentiment is reflected in her final card, take it or leave it. No need to think about what we could have been or what we can't change, just moving forward with what we have. The headstrong, straightforward, and ever-lovable Mint is one of my favorite characters. Mint, idolizing the legendary heroes of the world, answered the call for heroes on Rafta in an effort to be just as great as her idols. Growing up in a quiet port town with stories of great heroes, Mint dreamed of someday joining their ranks. And now she has, living among the very heroes that adorned her walls and posters, bunking with people she wrote fanfiction about, and, most importantly, being compared to them. Mint's character is overflowing with kindness for others, but is also struck by a constant fear. While she is perfectly capable of protecting and supporting her peers, either by keeping them safe, such as when she sands down all the sharp edges in the guild hall to protect their shins, or baking them cookies, she finds herself unable to measure up to the champions she admired as a child. Every hero's progress is tracked and measured by the guild, and despite not being bad by any margin, Mint is nowhere close to the place she wants to be. While she isn't the worst, someone is always better. As Mint said herself, she didn't come all this way to be mediocre. Mint won't let that get her down though. She can still grow. She only just got to Rafta, so she has time to make a name for herself and find a legendary weapon to hammer out a legacy. Mint keeps chasing legendary weapons that were lost or hidden on Rafta, but keeps finding broken ones or large stones instead. She eventually finds a magical cloak, the Cloak of Whispers. A cloak meant to boost one's stealth and whisper of hidden doors and enemies nearby. Instead of helping her though, the cloak leans into her worst fears, telling her she doesn't belong in the guild, that she isn't good enough. Mint burns the cloak in response, but hearing someone else, even if it was only a cloak, was enough to let the barely withheld doubts loose. Who can blame Mint? She is bunked with world-renowned heroes, many of whom are her idols, who have probably saved the world once or twice. Hoping to measure up to that is a steep ask. Mint has a hard time believing in herself, constantly having to fight against her self-doubt when seeing the other heroes so far ahead of her, or the trophies she has yet to claim. Mint struggles to believe she is worthy of being a true hero. The thing is, Mint is so focused on measuring up to her heroes that she doesn't see what she has accomplished. According to Mint, the amount of loot and the number of quests she has accomplished is mediocre. Focusing on the number of quests completed and the loot earned has taken Mint's focus away from why she became a hero in the first place, to help people. From solving the mist mazes that held a legendary sword and navigating an encounter with a dragon, to helping locals find their lost heirlooms and getting cat pirates out of trees, Mint has already helped many people and accomplished great feats, as Sylvia is more than ready to point out. Mint wanted a trophy as proof that she was indeed worthy to be walking among the heroes of the guild she so idolized, but she forgot that the trophy doesn't make the hero. In the end, Sylvia tells Mint just how easy it is to believe in her, just how much she has accomplished, just how worthy she is, and hearing someone else say it, even if for only a moment, seems to help. As Mint put it, she has to put daily work into believing in herself, and it is hard. But with someone to help her believe in herself, believing in herself will get just a little bit easier. By spending time with Mint and affirming her effort, Sylvia is able to give Mint some much needed support that is reflected in her final card, Fortitude, a card that protects her from all stress. With Sylvia by her side, Mint is invincible. Starting out as your second competitor, Corsac is outwardly aggressive at times, citing his distaste for how the environment is treated in the acquisition of ingredients for potions as the cause for his distaste of Sylvia. Unlike Sylvia, Corsac entered the competition to bring awareness to the people of Rafta that there was a better, more sustainable way to achieve success. But once Sylvia wins the competition, he wants nothing more than to return to the wilds. Sylvia suggests that instead of going back to being alone, that he join the guild to fund his expeditions. This moment opens a lot of doors for Corsac, as he now has a human connection again, one that showed him kindness despite plenty of aggression on his part. Sylvia continues to spend time with Corsac, learning about his way of life, interests, and just how bad he is at socializing. Sylvia's constant influence causes Corsac to see what he was missing without people. There's no denying that he will always be at home with nature and comfortable on his own, but an interest in socializing, running with a pack, has been stirred within him. Sylvia's presence in his life makes it clear to Corsac that not all company is bad company. That doesn't stop Corsac from being an outlier due to his concerns, keeping the part of him alive that just wants to continue walking, leaving everyone else behind. Corsac gets his chance to expand his pack with a happy hour at the guild hall, and is on the fence about attending. Through a little bit of pushing from Sylvia, Corsac goes, to mixed results. Some scoff at him and pass him up, but others listen, genuinely interested in what he has to say. In the end, he reveals to Sylvia that the reason he never opened up was out of fear of not being accepted. The fact that Sylvia took the time to listen to him, talk about his many fascinations, and participate in his activities, showing genuine interest and care, made him believe it might be worth opening up and finding others again. Even when Corsac was Sylvia's competitor, she was listening, recommending the guild hall was the first step. All the changes Corsac made to himself along the way haven't changed who he is, it just made him less lonely, all with the help of Sylvia, who listened to him. His last card, Lessons from Nature, features Corsac surrounded by animals who all run in packs, as he has finally found his. Despite being a superstar singer, Zid's concerns are ones that almost every creative has to face: the tension between fulfillment and survival. Having been scouted at a young age, Zid never really had the chance to develop on her own and get better at writing songs. Her songs fell to the wayside as songwriters and producers made an image of Zid to sell tickets, merch, and albums, while the song Zid wanted to write so long ago got left to rot. This leads to an unfulfilling but lucrative career for Zid. To try and reclaim a bit of her creative control, she disguises herself and goes on a little soul-searching journey to try and write her own songs again. As Sylvia's relationship with Zid develops, we get to watch a new original song take form as she slowly pieces it together during her time on Rafta. Zid truly cares about her new song and the impact her music has on people. She wants to make something with some soul in it. But the new song's debut doesn't go so well, with the cookie-cutter mass appeal song sent to Zid by her producer being a favorite of the crowd instead. This causes Zid to almost give up on writing songs altogether. Two things keep her from giving up, with the first being a few new fans. These fans genuinely liked her original song, wanted more of her creation, of her. Making new and different songs is hard and runs the risk of rejection, but some people truly loved what she did, and that encourages her to continue trying. The other reason that enables Zid to push through is Sylvia's faith in her. That faith and support from someone close to her is what keeps her writing, even when she believes that her song was a failure. The results of all the support and encouragement Zid received can be seen in her final card, Encore, as those that support her want more of her, in whatever form that may take. Saffron, the ever-wise forest-faring carpenter, has a lot on her mind. Most of her cards revolve around managing stress in one form or another, and with good reason. 20 years ago, Saffron was part of the original group that set out to slay the evil witch that ruled over the island, but she got injured fighting the Kraken in the bay, and was left behind as her party ventured forth. The party never returned, and Saffron is stuck with the grief of losing all her friends. Occasionally, the grief overwhelms her, and she needs to try and manage it, hence the theme of stress present in her cards. Saffron secluded herself away in the forest, trying to come to terms with that day and the scars it left behind. She wants to avoid the pain of losing those around her again, and this desire extends to her work, as she creates bridges to keep the greenhorns from the Heroes Guild on the path, where it is safer. She also fixes Sylvia's potion shop whenever she is there. Despite this, she refuses to grow too close to the people of Rafta, choosing instead to remain in the forest, where loss can't get her. Saffron, whether knowingly or not, has tried to protect those around her without getting too attached to anyone through her carpentry. After growing closer to Sylvia, Saffron starts to worry about losing someone close to her again. Unlike Sylvia, Saffron is not human, and will most likely outlive her, leaving Saffron alone again. This makes it hard for Saffron to open up and re-emerge from a shell that she built to protect herself 20 years ago. Sylvia tries to help Saffron by making a gesture through her potions. Dumping out a high-class and really expensive fire tonic, Sylvia makes a comparison between potions and relationships. A fire tonic can only guard against fire, but not against lightning, ice, or any other ailment. Holding on to a fire tonic in an unsuitable situation can simply weigh someone down and take up space that another more relevant potion could have taken. Sometimes, you need to leave the fire tonic behind and only bring what you need. Similarly, continually guarding oneself from heartbreak only leaves one vulnerable to isolation, or as Sylvia puts it, heartbreak by another name. To move on and live her life, Saffron needs to let down her guard, stop fearing heartbreak, and embrace what is to come. This gesture helps Saffron to open up again and confront some long dormant feelings. Saffron's newfound inner strength is represented by her final card, Tranquility, which discards all stress cards from your hand and lowers stress, allowing one to move on. Muktuk is overwhelmingly charming, boisterous, and friendly in equal measure. Bravado and craftsmanship carry this walrus forward as he brings only the highest quality goods he can muster. Muktuk is on a pilgrimage from his homeland to learn how to be a master craftsman, to awaken the voice of the ancestors within his muscles, and to change the world through a single piece of work of majesty. Muktuk is prone to waxing on the parts of being a craftsman, but it is always enjoyable listening to him. When Sylvia meets him, Muktuk has long been on his pilgrimage and created many fine works, if his collections are anything to go by. But, sadly, he has yet to hear the voices of the ancestors. Regardless, Muktuk is losing faith in himself and his creations, being crushed by the weight of his own expectations, without realizing just how much he has already accomplished. Muktuk does not want his work to simply sustain him, but to fulfill him. He wants his creations to have value beyond just instrumental value. Sylvia, seeing the value in his work, gives Muktuk a nudge using her potions, providing him with some much-needed clarity. This causes him to start asking for reviews from his regulars to find out how his craftsmanship has been received, with the aim of discovering if there is more than just instrumental value in his work. The reviews come back as overwhelmingly positive, as the care and attention Muktuk puts into his work is apparent to everyone who uses his creations. Everything Muktuk creates is longer lasting and more powerful, while costing less because he only charges the bare minimum to continue his craft. His passion and skill shines through his creations, and everyone can see it. Touched by this, Muktuk resolves to continue this path, in the pursuit of the unification of form and function, art that helps people. Muktuk has chosen his path, and he wants to help those around him through his craft while doing the best job he can, which is all reflected in his final card, Conviction. Luna is the workaholic moth marketer of Rafta. A recent arrival, just like Sylvia, she dreams of making a marketing platform for the little guy. There is nothing Luna loves more than amplifying worthy voices and ideas, except maybe lamps. However, running her agency comes at a price, as the little guy often can't pay for her services, at least in full. To properly run her new agency, Luna needs to take on larger, more demanding clients to afford to support these little up-and-comers. One of these large clients, which takes almost all of her focus, is royalty. The royal client is demanding, putting Luna under a lot of stress as she struggles to manage the demands. On top of that, her parents have placed some rather large expectations on her shoulders. She has 85 siblings, with a dozen of them being doctors and twice as many lawyers. Luna had recently left a successful marketing firm and a stable job to venture to Rafta and try her hand at her dream, and the pressure is getting to her. Luna is trying to measure up to the expectations of royalty, her parents, and even herself, and it is putting a lot of stress on her. Luckily, Luna is exceptional at handling stress, but it all comes to a head when Luna realizes that the royal patron is expecting too much of a one-person marketing show and she can't sustain it, so she tells her employer as much. In response, they offer to buy her out and give her a team to support her. Luna now has the option to choose between working for royalty, a lucrative, stable, and successful career, or sticking to her one moth show. Sylvia, in this case, helps to anchor Luna, giving her the clarity to consider her decision while fully supporting her goal of giving the little guy a voice. Even when it seemed like Luna's parents were not proud of her, or when the royals' workload threatened to swallow her up, Sylvia was there to spend time with Luna, help her relax a little, and give her a chance to refocus. In the end, Luna decides to turn down the offer. Remaining a little unsure of herself, Luna continues to hope it was the right decision, taking comfort in the fact that she had the conviction to choose. Luna decides that instead of chasing the concrete success of prestige or wealth, to chase instead what she enjoys so much about being a small marketer in the first place, working with up-and-coming entrepreneurs and giving them a chance to show the world what they can do. Luna chooses to chase what she cares for, with the cherry on top being that her parents are secretly really proud of her. They just don't say it to her face. The pride her parents felt towards her siblings and other fields was there all along. She was simply never allowed to see it. Luna reached for a definition of success defined by herself rather than a definition set by others, parents or royalty. Luna moved to Rafta to escape the expectations of everyone she knew, but moving didn't solve the problem. Instead, Sylvia and Luna supported each other as they pursued each of their dreams. In Luna's last card, Final Push, she is able to make the push to finally define success separately from the expectations from others, using her own 4 hands and a little love from Sylvia. Baptiste, the rich boy with an even richer heart of gold. Always the charmer, Baptiste has lived a bit of a sheltered life with a rich family, and has the manners that would normally come with the upbringing of an aristocrat of his class. Unlike what many may think of him, however, Baptiste is just as kind, empathetic, and caring as he is polite, suave, and charming. Baptiste is an example of how sometimes the cover of a book reveals precisely what is inside, and in his case, the cover shines like gold. However, his position of power does put him in a bind. The guild is currently a terrible place to work for heroes, with a terrible quality of life. But Baptiste also has an obligation to those that own the guild, to keep the guild profitable. That interested party also happens to be his family. Despite the harassment from the other guild members, Baptiste takes it all in stride and looks for a way to compromise, to keep the guild just as profitable as it always has been without the need to use and abuse its employees. But he can't do it, even with Sylvia's help. Baptiste has been given an impossible task and cannot help one party without hurting the other, creating an impasse. Undeterred, Baptiste keeps trying to solve the problem. Leveraging the fact that he has a friend from a different social class, Sylvia, he consults her on how to improve the lives of the heroes. Baptiste eventually finds a way by shifting the burden to another party, himself. By foregoing his own inheritance, thereby giving up nearly all of his material wealth, Baptiste claims ownership of the Heroes Guild in Rafta. He then gives up absolute power over the guild by establishing a diplomatic board filled with checks and balances that gets elected by the heroes for the heroes. Baptiste gave up his life of luxury and wealth for the sake of the heroes of Rafta because he cared. Although he aims to get back to his life of luxury one day, he intends to get back to it his own way, without exploiting others. Baptiste would have most likely given up if it were not for Sylvia, as her faith in him gave him the strength he needed to persevere and commit to his path, with his last card, Silver Tongue, carrying him the rest of the way. Roxanne, Sylvia's first competitor, is a demonically seductive con artist, scamming people with fake potions that have nice-looking bottles. Her loss to Sylvia has upended her most recent endeavor, her potion scheme, and so she seeks to turn to her next one, enchanting. The thing is, Roxanne is a legitimately good enchanter, with no need for tricks. It is later revealed that she became a con artist to survive. Demons in the world of Potionomics were driven underground a long time ago. Living underground, Roxanne would get glimpses of the beauty on the surface, the dresses, the wealth, the fashion. It enraptured her so much that she left her home, her family, and her life for the surface, where she lost it all to a rich con. The wealthy abused her dreams to entrap her in a cycle of toil, hope, and obligation, causing her to amass a lot of debt. So, for the sake of survival, she became a con, and a good one at that. But now, with Sylvia's help, Roxanne has a chance to turn it all around. Her legitimate business of enchanting is profitable, and she's good at it, but she needs a business license, and those don't grow on trees. Sylvia keeps pushing Roxanne to stay on her legitimate heading, to do the right thing, going so far as to be called Roxanne's developing conscious. After being conned and connected to cons for so long, Roxanne is having a hard time distancing herself from old habits. But between Sylvia offering her hand when she was down on her luck, encouraging her to go legit, and buttering her up, Roxanne is able to show the world just how strong she really is. No con required. Roxanne is still as sly as she ever was, as shown in her final card, Mass Misdirection. But she had someone who helped her, someone who listened to her talk about her home and her traditions, someone who genuinely wanted the best for her, someone who saw just how great she really was, and it made all the difference. Now she shines, just like the gems she cuts and polishes, able to show her true strength. Now this is where I circle back around to the time mechanic from earlier. The player is not really told that after 50 days the game just ends, that there is nothing left. If the player focused all their time on just trying to upgrade the shop, all they are left with is a maxed out shop with no one in it. Story-wise, Sylvia still runs the shop and everyone is still there, but mechanically, the player has spent all their time upgrading a now useless mechanic. At the end of my run, I reflected on my time with Potionomics and thought about what I valued the most out of my experience. The potion making, the resource management, and the main story were all fun, yes, but not 30 hours worth. What I remembered from my experience was the character interactions. Quinn's sharp quips, Mint's earnest compassion, Corsac's drive and passion, Zid's creative desire, Saffron's kind nature, Muddock's infectious enthusiasm, Luna's wired energy, Baptiste's heart of gold, and Roxanne's devilish charm. Instead of upgrading my store, instead of making as much money as I could, I went through the game spending most of my time slots with the other characters in the game. With my limited time, I wanted to survive the competitions and make it to day 50, yes, but whenever I had spare time, I spent with all the characters of Rafta, listening to their problems and helping them however I could. In the end, I ended up reflecting on life, the definition of success, and what I would want to think of my life on my deathbed. I concluded that, despite the care I had for the shop and how much I enjoyed the craft, what I truly valued were the relationships. I fell in love with every character in Potionomics, both as characters and as a character. At the end of my time with Potionomics, I cared about the characters, the impact my time with them had on the story, and the experiences they left me with, more than creating the best potion shop on Rafta. That little island is in a little better shape than when I first set foot on it, and the store was a vital part of that, as well as being necessary to my survival, but there was more to my experience. Time is limited in Potionomics, just as it is in real life, and this forced me to choose what I valued most. My choice to spend what time I had with the colorful characters of Rafta was certainly the right one.